How do you tell him to on the camera? Dr. Saji, can you please switch on your camera? Thank you, sir. Harika, start.
Warm good afternoon, everyone. Ramaiah College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Department of Management Studies is pleased to welcome you all to the third day of webinar series on management challenges and opportunities in the face of pandemic. And topic for the day titled Creating Innovation as an Emerging Culture. And my name is Harika, and I have the privilege of being your host today for the webinar. Well, I would like to kickstart today's webinar by welcoming our dignitaries on the panel. So today we have with us one such eminent personality, Dr. Saji Gopinath sir, Kerala CEO, Kerala Startup Mission. On the behalf of Department of Management Studies, Ramaiah College of Art, Science and Commerce, I welcome you, sir. Also, I welcome our Honorable Dean, Dr. Bindu Nammiyar Ma'am, Department of Management Studies, Ramaiah College of Art, Science and Commerce. I welcome you, ma'am. Also, all the faculties, participants, students of Ramaiah College of Art, Science and Commerce, and from other prestigious institutions as well. Warm welcome to all of you. Instructions to the participants. Participants, please be informed that Q&A will be held at the end of the session. So post your questions in the chat box accordingly. Well, before we begin with today's webinar, it gives me an immense pleasure in handovering the dais to the faculty moderator for the day, Mr. Prakash Nimbalkar sir, faculty, Department of Management Studies, Ramaiah College of Art, Science and Commerce, who has diverse experience in dealing with subjects like digital marketing, startup and entrepreneurship. Sir, I request you to introduce our eminent speaker for the day. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Harika. A very good afternoon and welcome one and all. As you all are aware, today is the third in the series of webinar titled Management Challenges and Opportunities in the Face of a Pandemic. On behalf of the Department of Management Studies, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Saji Gopinath, who has consented to be the speaker for today's webinar. Dr. Saji Gopinath is the Director of Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management Kerala and Chief Executive Officer of Kerala Startup Mission. Before assuming these positions in April 2017, Dr. Gopinath served IIM Kozhikode as its Dean Academics and Professor in Operations Management for over 17 years. He was also the Director of TAPMI, Manipal, and the founding Dean of Bennett University set up by the Times of India. He also serves as visiting faculty to a few universities in Europe and Australia. A gold medalist in mechanical engineering from CET Trivandrum, Dr. Gopinath did his PG and PhD from Indian Institute of Science. He was also trained at Harvard Business School and Yale University and serves in several national committees on education and technology. As a faculty member associated with IIM Kozhikode since its inception in 1997, he played a pivotal role in making it as one of the top 5 management schools in the country. Under his leadership, Kerala Startup Mission has been ranked as top performer ecosystem in the country by the Government of India and as world's #1 public business accelerator by the World Incubation Summit in the year 2019. He is also instrumental in converting IIT MK into an University of Digital Sciences, Innovation and Technology with a focus to address the research and talent issues of Industry 4.0. He has several research papers in reputed journals and consults many leading national organizations like Reliance Industries, JK Group, GMR Group, etc. He was also recipient of several awards from national and international bodies. British Council Knowledge Economy Fellowship, London, Business School, CS Award, Educational Leadership Award, PIE Ecosystem Enabler Award, AMA Technology Leadership Award, CMA Management Leadership Award, Future Kerala Best CEO Award are some of them. An evangelist of modern technologies, he also served as a member in the High Power IT Committee set up by the government of Kerala. I now hand over the proceedings to Dr. Saji. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, respected Dean and faculty members of Ramaiah College of Art, Science and Commerce Management Department, other distinguished attendees of this seminar. I believe that a large number of students are also attending. At the outset, let me thank the organizers of this webinar series for inviting me to spend some time with all of you, to discussing about how the future is shaping up, especially in the wake of the COVID-19, which has disrupted many things which we take it for granted a few months back. So I was basically looking at innovation as an important element for us for survival and growth in the next post-pandemic world per se. So we know that there's a lot has been said, a lot has been written about, a lot has been discussed about how the world is going to happen in the post-COVID world as such. Like someone has rightly said, COVID is far from over, but there are a lot of discussions happening how the world is going to be in the future. I'm not going to attempt many of those things. Instead, I would try to look at how the future is shaping up in the last few years, maybe last decade or so, which I believe that the pandemic has only accelerated. There may be some changes, but a lot of changes which is going to happen are actually happening in the past. And through this pandemic, we are actually accelerating those changes. So which basically means that there is going to be a new normal. And this new normal, which we expected happen maybe 10 years from now, may happen maybe 10 months from now, or maybe 10 weeks from now. Like Alan Kay has rightly pointed out, when you have too much of uncertainty and you don't know how the future is, the best way for going to the future is to predict the future is to invent it. And I think that's the role all of us have today. How do we actually shape the future into the days to come? So primarily this talk is looking at three aspects. Primarily, this talk is speaking at three aspects. We basically look at what is the type of disruption which is happening in the world, of course, in the context of pandemic, as well as even otherwise. And we try to collectively decode the future and looking at what you mean by disruption, what is meant by this creative innovation per se. But more importantly, we look at what are the strategies for growth and excellence in this world of disruption. And that's basically where the innovation plays a very important role, especially disruptive innovation plays an important role. How do we actually get an innovative mindset? How do we actually look at innovation as a strategic weapon into the days to come? That's primarily we will look at the last, where we are looking at what is the roadmap for excellence. How each of us can drive this disruptive innovation or the creative innovation person. So this is briefly what I would like to cover in the next 30 to 35 minutes, and then we will clarify most of these things through questions and answers. So we know that I'm sure that many of you sitting here, especially management students, management academics, we used to hear about a lot about disruption in the past few years, and much more in the last few days or last few months. We used to hear about large companies becoming extinct. We see many products becoming extinct. Digital cameras being one. The camera companies going out of business. You can see large companies are actually being taken by small companies. All this was happening in the past few years. So when we speak about disruption, we basically consider it as more of a revolution. A revolution is basically a turnaround, a fundamental change or an abrupt change in the social order. And I'm sure all of us many of us have heard about revolution, but we have witnessed the revolution to some extent in the last few months. And what causes revolutions? One is black swans, which I'm sure management students know about black swans, an event which is unpredictable, which suddenly came out of blue, and such external forces, very drastic changes in that create that. There is also political, social, technological changes which make changes over the years that also can lead to revolutions. We are not speaking about political revolution in this talk. We are speaking more about the larger social revolution which is happening. But important thing is, all this revolution, the result is disruption. Disruption in the way we do, disruption in the way we take things for granted, disruption in many of the aspects which we have taken for granted. So let me look at what are those elements which is actually leading to the disruption and how the disruption is happening. So there are many factors, but let me, for the want of time, let me put just 3 factors. And one of the factors I will put it from a context of COVID, and the other 2 is, and even this factor was there even before COVID, but COVID has actually sort of accentuated that. And then we also look at 2 other factors as such. So let's start with the simple socio-political factor which is happening around the world. Now for that, let's go back a little bit back on the history. I'm not going to make it as a historic talk, but if you go back into 2 or 3 centuries back, we see that most of the production was happening at smaller areas. So you have a village or you have a small country or a small region which is making everything which that particular location wants. And this was even when the human history happened or human civilization happened, this was what happened. Now, this sort of self-contained villages at some point of time found that there are excess. You produce more food or you produce more material. Then what you do is you started giving that to other parts of the world. So you started what is called as trade based on this. So things actually moved, and we started using, conventionally we started using the water power, that is the steam, the sailboats, and we use steamers and things like that. And this was what happening for almost 100,000, 2,000 years as such. So a lot of goods used to move, few people used to move. Now this actually changed substantially in the last century. If you look at the last century, that is the century of automobiles, we see there is a big change in the mobility. We have seen IC engines happening. We have seen jet engines happening. We have seen intercontinental movement become very easy. So what happened is that people started moving very fast from one point to another point. It was very easy for somebody who is sitting in Bangalore to go to, let's say, London and do the job and come back in 1 or 2 days' time. So it's so easy for you to travel across the world. Now, this has actually led to what we today know as the globalization. Along with that, it also suddenly started, from a management point of view, it also started that you can actually make things where it makes best sense to make. So rather than making everything everywhere, which is happening in the past, you started making in large areas, large factories. The whole concept of Ford model of economies of scale, etc., came in the last century per se. So what are most of the management subjects which we learn today, most of the tools and theories and which we learn today and we practice today, all came from this mass production philosophy and mass production philosophy of the management. Even management itself came out of this concept maybe 100, 120 years back. So this whole thing of globalization is what's happening, and we were taking it for granted. With technology, with computer technology, this becomes more faster. Now, what happened now? What happened now is the next stage of political change. So we now speak about a world of social distancing. Even if a vaccine is found for a virus, it takes a lot of time for everybody in the world to get insulated. Even after that, we are not sure that another pandemic may not come. We are not sure that another disaster may not come. So in other words, we are actually moving into a world where the limited mobility which we took it for granted is going to be in a big question. So we are looking into a world of limited mobility. So in this, what's going to happen predictably is that you will see personal mobility get challenged. Not too many people will move as easy as what they used to move. It doesn't mean that you don't have aircrafts and things like that. But even if you have, you may have to have a lot of safety procedures, etc., which takes the time of movement, the friction which we call in the transaction cost terminology, it will be more. And that actually lead to, especially in the COVID world, we found that there is a lot of supply chain disruptions. We moved to globalization to quite a bit of emphasis on the localization. And people already start speaking about offshoring to right shoring. Like rather than producing it in a different place and bringing it, you can actually make it closer to your place. So in other words, the world is going back to where it was. It is going to come out into smaller circles first. Now, I said at the start that this is not a COVID phenomenon alone. Some of you are following the way the world is changing. You know about the Trump philosophy, or you know about Brexit, you know about Niakat in Middle East. All these are also actually these nationalist movements which actually protect the people, which actually protect their turf, which is actually happening. It was happened in Europe, it has happened in America, it has happened in Asia. So this COVID only made it much more fasten the whole process. So this is one important change which we believe is going to happen, where you may not be looking at the same level of globalization, same level of people movement which used to happen, and you will see a lot of smaller level development happen at closer to our place. So this is one point. And let me put these 3 points, and then I will come back to how this is going to become an opportunity or a challenge person. And I'm sure that some of you may have a difference of opinion. At the end, we can discuss on that. The second point is the change in the culture. Now, when you speak about the change in the culture, now think about this, especially people who are a little senior. What is the change in culture which has happened in the recent past? Is there a major change which has happened? The answer is actually yes. If you look at, I'm sure that many of you, especially senior people here, may be thinking that there is a disruption of the culture. The culture has actually gone bad. We were actually having more person-to-person interaction, but that has come down. But I'm not speaking about the negative part of it. I'm speaking about the positive part of it. The positive part of the culture today is that there is a big element of trust which has happened. Now, I'm sure that many of us may not realize this fully, but let me give you an example. Let's look at the past. In the past, assume that you wanted to go for a picnic, or you wanted to go for a holiday trip. You wanted to select a hotel. How do you select a hotel? You will basically look at what is the brand of the hotel, whether this is a government hotel or whether this is of a entity which is existing for years, etc. So we used to put a lot of emphasis on somebody giving a stamp on something to trust that. Today, youngsters here, think about it. How did you select when you are going for a trip? You look at one of the travel sites, look at select a particular hotel, look at what is the ranking and rating given by others, and if the rating is good, you select that. Now ask this question: do you know who gave the rating? The answer is no, but we trust that rating, right? When you take a Uber cab or when you take an Ola cab, we actually look at what is the rating of the driver. We don't know who has given the rating, but we trust that person who has given the rating, and we know that there is a technology which allows that cannot be modified. So in other words, people started trusting each other much more than what was happening in the past. This is a big thing. While one end you are creating smaller groups, at the other end you are actually making people interact at a very higher level, having a trust with each other. The second element, which is again not there in the past thing, especially in the industrial world, it's not there. There's a huge amount of voluntarism which is happening. Think about the smartphones you have. I'm sure all of you have a smartphone, and you ask this question: what actually gave smartphone the smartness? The answer immediately will come that the apps which we use. Now, the apps which you use in your iPhone, or whether you are using in a Google phone, is this apps made by Google or Apple? No, it is made by many other companies. And most of those companies, if you go to an app store or if you go to iTunes, you see they're all free. So this question we need to ask is, why should somebody put their time, their effort, make a product and give it for others in the world to use? So there is a different way of working which is coming in, which is voluntarism. And you have seen, and as a simple example, many of you, when you have been given an assignment, you use Wikipedia. Why should somebody actually put data into the Wikipedia? Why should somebody share those things for somebody else's benefit? So the world has moved from a lot of individualism to a lot of collectivism and collaboration. And in this process, we have come out with a world of abundance. Now that's a big strategic change, because most of our management theories speaks about world of shortages. We are moving to a world of abundance. How do we speak about a world of abundance? Let's take an example. Many of us have got homes where there are excess rooms available. Now, the question is that suppose a stranger comes to your town and he has to stay. He's ready to pay, but he cannot pay as high as what he can pay in a hotel. And you have a spare room. If he pays you a smaller than that hotel amount, will you allow the person to stay in your home? Anyway, you are not using the room. You may use only for a guest who may comes maybe once in a year or something like that. You are kept a room vacant for that. The answer to many of your minds is that, no, I won't give that. But look at this. I'm sure all of you know, sitting here knows about Airbnb. What is the model they did? They did the model exactly what I said, where they actually allow people to spare the extra rooms and people who want to take it. How do you know that the guy who is coming is a good guy? Look at the ratings. How do the guy who come in knows that the person who is giving the room is a good guy? Again, look at the ratings. So when you look at these two, there's a world, suddenly you see what in the past you had only limited number of rooms, suddenly you become a large number of rooms which are available. It's a disruptive innovation. It's an innovation which has actually created easily available thing. So you can cite such many number of examples as such. The power of peers, the power of sharing is something which the new culture actually brought in. So this is an important thing because it also led to what is known as organizational dissolution. If you go back to things and start looking at what is happening today, you can see that there is a substantial level of intermediaries which is there. And the intermediaries are there only because we don't trust each other. The moment you do that, that intermediaries become disintermediate, you have a completely different model as such. So this needs to redefine the competition strategy, the concept of mass production, etc. Let me go back to that concept of organizational dissolution in a slide. So let's take an example here. Typically, when you look at an organization, as on what it happens today, and as managers, we are very familiar with it. You have an office where a manager or employee is there, and then employees are there. And earlier, you are doing it, customer also is there, but in many cases, customer will be distant. You create a product or service and give it to the customer. This is a pre-COVID scenario. You have factories, you have offices, you have many other organizations where employee, and managers are same. What happens today? Now, I have been told that Harika, the student, is actually not today at the college. She is in another place because it's a containment zone. Same is the case with many people who are working in offices. So what happened is, in the post-COVID scenario, you see that there is a disruption. All these people are actually at different places today. The customer is at one place, workspace is another place, manager is another place, employee is another place, they work from home or other places as such. So at some point of time, the customers start asking this question that, why do you need these intermediaries in between? Why can't I directly start talking to the employee? Why am I need an organization in between? I want to get something done. Why don't I get it directly from this? I'll give you another example before I elaborate on that. Think about a bank. Why do you require a bank? You have some money and I need some money. So what happens? You give the money to the bank, I take the money from the bank. And this was happening for years. Now, why should we do this? When you give money to the bank, bank give you, let's say, 6% interest. When bank gives to me, he charges me 10% interest. So there's a 4% interest he takes. So let's ask this case. Let me and you directly transact. You give me the money, I'll pay you 8%. You gain, I'm also gaining, right? Why do I require a bank in between? Now this question was not there because we never trust each other. Now, when I start trusting an Uber driver because others have rated me, when I trust an Airbnb customer because others have rated me, you can see the trust level is actually going to be the interesting thing into this world. Now, this world is what is known as gig economy. The economy which comes where all these comes together and you don't need intermediaries. P2P networks are already started happening in the banking sector also. So this is an organizational dissolution which is happening in the context of the trust element as such. Now, these are going to be challenges for the managers in a very interesting way. So I just put two things: socio-political change, which makes smaller units; trust, which brings you together. The third layer is basically the technology revolution. Now, if you see across the period, always some technologies have drawn the change. It was textile technology, locomotives in the past. I'm sure that many of us heard about a place called Manchester, not only because there's a Manchester soccer club, but we also know that Manchester was very famous because they were the textile capital at some point. Almost 100 years, a small town in Europe, in UK, was actually controlling the world economy as the textile capital. The last century, the American century, was driven by automobiles, automobile technology. And most of the things which we do today are actually driven to automobiles. The mass production, the mass education, all of them came from that. The last 30, 40 years, we were speaking about computers and Silicon Revolution. And now we are speaking about the next revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, which speaks about artificial intelligence, future technologies, and things like that. While we discuss a little bit on that, but important thing I wanted you to look at is the time each revolution is taking. It took almost 108 years for textile to become across the world. The colonization happened as part of that. It took almost 80 years even for automobile to reach every part of the world. But it took only 30 years for a computer to reach. In fact, you know that mobile phones reached us in 5 years, right? So every new technology is coming to us in a very, very short period of time. This is an interesting change. And this fourth industrial revolution, which combines physical, digital, biological world, is the third level of disruption which is happening. Because it brings in exponential technologies. It makes big, big change in the way we are working as such. And that paradigm shifts is something which we need to be aware of. Because A, it is exponential and it is disruptive, which we already discussed. The second is it also brings a different level of trust. So there's a collaboration, decentralization possible. Third, it also brings a lot of abundance because it's open and democratic. To understand the real impact of this technology, let me give you a small example here. Think about this machine, which I'm sure all of us are familiar with. Procline or an earth mover or a JCB, which is commonly known as. Think about a world where JCB was not there. How many people were required to do 1 hour of work JCB is doing today? You will have to put thousands of man hours, right? For 1 hour JCB is doing today. Even with so much of manpower, literally manpower, you cannot really do the work as clean and neat and as efficient as what a JCB does it today. So what has happened in this process? One JCB came and displaced a large number of people out of job, right? A large amount of physical labor has been removed by one JCB. Think about a big hill to be demolished. It used to take several thousands of people to break it. Today, JCB comes, 2 days it is done. So it disrupted a large number of physical jobs. Now, ask this question. Can a JCB of similar nature can come and disrupt our mental jobs, cognitive jobs which we do? What are those cognitive jobs we do? Almost all the jobs which we do, right? The financial analyst job, the stock market job, the marketing job. Almost all these jobs can, just like something which disrupted the physical, can a machine come and disrupt such jobs? The answer to that is unfortunately yes. Simple example is bots, software chatbots or software bots or robots. All of them are actually disrupting, just like this machine has disrupted physical work, it is disrupting cognitive work. And this can actually extend to creative work, it can extend to professional work and many things into the days to come. So there is a big challenge that our conventionally what jobs we take it for granted is also going to go from us. Now, given these two conditions, while this is a negative thing, we should also need to remember that this also leads to opportunities. A simple example is the one which we are currently using. Why did we use Zoom? Zoom is a startup product. We have so many bigger companies. You have Microsoft, you have Cisco, we have many others who have got products. But we choose to use a startup product because Zoom actually disrupted this market. And Zoom used all these advantages of the technology to do that. Now, it is not only Zoom. Closer home, I have a company, and all of you know, sitting here knows about Business Today. And these two youngsters, pictures are given in the front page of Business Today, is a startup company from just 2 years back. And what do? They disrupted one of the worst jobs in the world, scavenging, cleaning manholes, cleaning drainages. We have seen, I'm sure every city we have seen this, people manually clean this. In India, 3.6 million, 36 lakh people do this job every day. Now, what these kids have done, these people have done, they developed a machine using all this power, the trust, the technology, all this power, and developed it. So much so that they developed in 8 months. In another 10 months, Honorable Prime Minister and the United Nations Secretary General together actually launched the product. Think about it. In the past, you can never ever imagine a very young entrepreneur can actually go and make their product so big in a very short period of time. Today, their company is a 200 crore company operating in around 8 or 9 states. Now, this is possible because of this new world offers a completely different level of opportunities if you are innovative and if you are creative. This is not only one example, you have any number of examples. In Bangalore itself, you have several such companies who have made disruptive innovations, which actually took conventional jobs into a very different level. Conventional companies have taken head on and things like that. So I was just basically trying to put a point that while it disrupts a job in one end, it actually gives you a lot of opportunities into the other space also. So the impact of Industry 4.0, if you really wanted to have more grip on that, since I don't have time, I'm not going into the details, but I very, very strongly recommend that whenever you get a free time, please go to YouTube and watch this video. There is a YouTube video, says humans need not apply. And it basically tells you how the technology is actually disrupting all the various type of jobs which we took it for granted into the past. So in other words, all these brings a new level of normal in front of us. And normal where there is limited mobility, so there is a localization possibility. You have new way of trust, which so resource availability and new norms of workspace happening, increased role of technology. Ask an old company how much a mobile phone or a WhatsApp has changed their business. They will say that it has changed substantially. So some technologies comes very, very drastically into our lives. Disruption in conventional philosophies, service jobs, vocation. It's simple as that. Most of you sitting here cannot, the first thing you may be doing in the day, when the day open, maybe to look at your WhatsApp or a Facebook. You cannot even think about a world when it was not there. So that much technological influence has come to us. So these are all brings a new sets of opportunities, paradigm shifts and challenges. As I said earlier, it is basically COVID only accelerated this. It was always there. It was only accelerated this. So before I go into the next one, I have a question to you, each of us to think about. What are we supposed to do at this context? Should we lead this change? Should we follow this change or we ignore this change? Remember, as a country, when Industrial Revolution came, we were under British rule, so we could not lead or follow it. We ignored it. Not by choice, but we were forced to do that. That's why India never became an industrialized state. When the computer revolution came, we were independent, but we did not lead. We followed, but we followed very nicely. And Indian IT industry really made a mark in the service industry, even though not in the product, but at least in the service industry. Now we have the third layer where all these positive things are there, which helps us to write ambience for living. So all youngsters here, all people who are sitting here, hearing these youngsters, all of us, the challenge is how do we lead our country? How do we lead our thing with all our positives energy into leading into this thing as such? And that's basically where we need to start looking at the innovation aspect of it. And what is to gain from the future? We require disruptive innovations. Disruptive innovations comes in two ways. It creates something very new and it adopt and innovate incrementally. Both can actually be creative, but disruptive innovation is something which basically creates something new per se. In other words, it creates new markets. The new markets called of blue oceans. I'll come back to that in a little bit more detail, how you do it and what is this concept of a blue oceans very, very soon. But all these new businesses are driven by small, agile, and technology-driven enterprises. And a completely different set of entrepreneurship is actually happening into the days to come. So what are we speaking about that? Entrepreneurship theory says that when an economy grows, there are three levels of entrepreneurship comes. The first level of entrepreneurship is a factor-driven entrepreneurship, where you are basically looking at the conventional factors, the land, labor, capital, and things like that. So you are basically trying to create value through that. But when economy grows, you go into an efficiency-driven entrepreneurship. And efficiency-driven entrepreneurship is where you are focusing on low cost of production, things like that. But the real disruption happens, the real thing happens when you move to the third level, a third level of innovation-driven entrepreneurship. Now, if you wanted to lead the world into the post-COVID period, when you have such a large opportunities and such a favorable and challenging factors in front of us, we may have to go into the innovation-driven entrepreneurship. I'm sure that we keep on hearing about innovation every now and then. People keep on using the word innovation every now and then. Now, what is this innovation is something which we need to design and discuss. So, to give that thing, people used to say, is Uber is an innovation? It is not a disruptive innovation. It is obviously a way people have never thought about. It changed the way people have been doing. A disruptive innovation is something which actually addresses a market which is not addressed earlier. And just show, this is from the Clayton Christensen's classic work on disruptive innovations, where he says that typically an organization keep on doing small changes and sustain the innovation. Some other disruptor will come below that and start addressing a very different market. Take an example. Surf as a product was making improvements. Nirma suddenly came, addressed a very different market. But in a very short period of time, Nirma grew very fast. At some point of time, they even challenged the supremacy of Unilever's product. Now, what happens is that if this curve is linear, disruptive innovations may not really disrupt the market. But if the curve is non-linear like this, where it starts in a smaller market, but over the period, it suddenly breaks into the old market, it becomes a disruptive innovation person. Low-cost airlines is a good example. Low-cost airlines, when they introduced, it was primarily meant for a specific segment of a society and for a smaller elements of society. But very soon, you can see that it actually took mainstream mainstream people into the thing as such. Airbnb is an example. They were actually initially using only for backpackers, but very soon even business travelers start using it. So it actually started disrupted the market, which otherwise have been handled by larger hospitality players like Hyatt or others. So even people started using Airbnb instead of going to some of those hotels as such, even business travelers. So this sort of a disruptive innovation basically takes the incumbent for a disruption actually. And this can be at the product level, this can be at the service level. Mobile cameras is a good example. When the mobile cameras were introduced, it was never meant for a professional person. But over the period, the quality of mobile cameras have gone, and even professional people started using them even for professional photography to some extent, not fully, to some extent. All these are examples of disruptive innovations per se. So how do we create this innovative mindset? Now, innovation comes when you are challenging, when you started challenging some of the conventional beliefs. The typical example which I give, I think I have another 10 minutes more. So typical example which we give to get an example of innovation is, in management, we always speak about contradictions, right? We always say that there is a compromise between this or that. And for a product or a service, the common compromise is cost, time of delivery, and the varieties. So we know that if my cost is high, if I want a lot of varieties, the cost will be high. That's what we call as a customized product. Customized product always gives you need more money. So if I wanted a standard ready-made thing, I need not pay less. I need not have to pay more. But if I want a customized product, I need to pay more. Same way, if I want something fast, obviously my cost will go up and my varieties will come down. Or if I wanted something at a low cost strategy, things will be very standard, may take some time for delivery, etc. So these three elements of customer service, that is cost, service, that is varieties, and time of service, these are contradictory. Now, my question to you is that, can you think about a product or a company or an organization which actually break this triad? What it did? It can be a product which says that I will give you low cost, but I will not charge you more for it. I will actually charge you less. That is low cost. I will give you any amount of varieties and I will deliver you fast. So conventional management theories, the low cost strategy, differentiation strategy, etc., which you have studied in strategy, this particular product or a company actually disrupts. It says that I'm going to give you low cost, I'm giving you varieties, I will also give you with a very low period of time. You don't have to wait for that. Do you know, or do you know any product or service like that? I'm sure that many of your minds might come as Amazon or things like that. But remember, this should be profit making also. So I can give you something by making a loss on my hole on my pocket. That is not really a strat. That's not what I meant. You need to make money for yourself also. So example I can give you is a paint industry, a normal paint industry. Think about a world in the past. What happens if you go to a paint shop? You may have 5 room paint, for example. You may have 5 shades. If you ask for a 6th shade, the person will say that come after a week and I will charge you more. Today, when you go to a paint industry, paint shop, you will be given a book. A book will have maybe 1,000, 5,000 colors, shades. Is he charging you more? No, he is giving so much of variety. He is not charging you more. And do you have to wait for long? No, he will mix and give you in a very short period of time. So what paint industry did? Paint industry disrupted the conventional belief that both cost, time, and variety are contradictory. They did not, they actually disrupted the whole thing. Obviously, using a supply chain technique known as power of postponement. I don't want to get into that. But what I meant is that when you speak about optimization of compromises, we are always thinking that things are all constrained like that. We never question the constraint. It is time when you wanted to look at innovation, question the constraints. Is this constraint really valid today? 1 month back or 2 months back, if somebody says that there can be a case where people can sit across the world and very seamlessly interact with each other, can take sessions, because nobody would have believed. They would have said that it is not effective, people will not attend, people will have a problem. No people, in fact, I was trying to do this for gig economy, and people were saying that gig economy will not be very productive. Today, you see work from home, all the studies have shown that productivity has actually gone up. So these are all because the constraints have never been checked. So breaking the constraints, you will get a new world altogether. And that is basically done through a very simple model here. It's actually used in blue oceans, where what you say is that you look at a product and ask this question: do you require all these things? Can I eliminate some of them? Can I reduce some of them? Should I create some of them? And can I actually raise some of the qualities? So create, raise, reduce, and eliminate, you get a new product. And that new product can actually lead to a different market altogether. Because as managers, we always look at customers, right? We We always worry about how do we actually serve the customers more. But ask this question, in a country like India, do we have, for any product or service, do we have people who have it or people who don't have it is more? You can see a large number of products and services, people who don't have it are more than the people who have it, which means non-customers are more than the customers. So why are we focusing on customers alone? Why can't we start looking at serving the non-customers? That's where the creativity comes into picture. And these non-customers, when I say, they are not necessarily people of they always look at a low cost. No, there are cases where a low cost product actually can be positioned in another place. I'll just give one example and go ahead. Khadi as a cloth, we all know that, right? Khadi as a cloth, we know. Many of us may not buy it, or even if we buy it, we buy it on a discount. Now, think about this model. I take a Khadi and I change it. What I do, what Khadi don't have today is fashion. So I create fashion in that. What Khadi showrooms have it is the ambience. I create a huge ambience in the Khadi showrooms. What Khadi had it is subsidies. I eliminated subsidies. What Khadi currently have it is, it has having a very, very social appeal. I remove that. I reduce that. Now I created two things. I created a fashion. I raised the ambience. I removed the price, and I removed the subsidies, and I reduced the socialistic appeal and things like that. So what is the advantage of this? You suddenly make Khadi as a very, very coveted product, and a company which in front of us who have done it and doing extremely well is Fab India. While our Khadi Bandhas are actually doing bad and struggling, you see somebody else who converted by this model and addressed people who otherwise were not buying Khadi and created a completely different market altogether. So that is possible when you innovate, when you start disrupting it, when you actually start looking at a different model. And for that, we need to think beyond competition. India is a country where competition is not what we should look at. We have a huge market. How do I address that market is what we need to worry about. Even if 10 companies come, you don't have a problem because you still have a very large market there. And how do I address that market? You need to actually create strategies for that. Same way, marketing, we need to actually go to the next level where we started looking at using the data, because today data is plainly available. So how do I use that data to it? Same change with finance, same change with performance management. I don't have time to go into each of this, but my point is that there is a need for new management philosophies to come into picture. And the innovation which I spoke about, where you are questioning the constraints and looking at each product and see, can I create a new product which will address a set of non-customers? Three types of non-customers: the customers who don't know about this product, customers who know this product but not buying it, the customers who has bought the product similar to this but they are not very happy with it. All these three non-customers we can address if innovation becomes a culture and a habit. And how do we do that? For that, we need to actually start focusing back on the education. I'll finish with a couple of more slides and then we'll go into the questions. Any education comes with three elements. The knowing element. What's knowing element? Our theories, models, formulas, problem solving, all these things which we are doing, writing the exams and all those things. They're very important. They are the cake. Without that cake, you cannot really make anything more than that. You cannot, if cake is bad, nobody is going to buy it. But knowing alone is not enough. You need to do. You need to have a practical application of it. You need to have a skill of doing it. You need to have a problem of finding the real problem, finding and solving it. But these two alone are not enough. You require what is known as a being part of it. If you really wanted to be innovative and move into the next level, your education models which we adopt, from whichever source we do, have to have all these three components. Now, how do we do that? Knowing is something, answers the what, which is basically classrooms or online education, etc. helps you. How is something which we learn in the labs, which we learn when you go for an internship. And being is something when we actually make our hands dirty by working on startups, working in industries and things like that. Once we have all these things, we basically addressing the new set of skills. which World Economic Forum says, in the world, in the future world where there is a challenge for people to win, people to create a culture of innovation, the innovative entrepreneurship is going to think important elements are elements to solve complex problems, elements to have social skills. Remember the trust model which I spoke about? That came from the social skills. Social skills that I am ready to share. I am ready to share and I am ready to take. I will go, if I go to an Uber car and if the car driver is bad, I will give him a bad rating so that the next guy, whom I don't know who is that guy, he will actually be alerted or she will be alerted. That is something, or if this guy is very good, I will give him a good rating. So that trust element comes from that. And process skills and the system skills. All these skills comes from that set of education. So let me wind up by saying that my take on the world is these three factors. There are many other factors, but these three factors actually makes the world into a very, very new space as such, where to lead that, you require a disruptive mindset, a disruptive thinking per se. But disruptive thinking will not come if I say that, okay, all my education is bad and go out. No, it's not the way you need to look at it. You need to look at how do I question the constraints, adapt it, and change as such. Why do you require this? Because you can't go back and change the beginning. But you can start where you are and you can change it. If you don't do that, we know this animal, right? Dinosaur, the big animal. But when a calamity came, the animal became no more. But while this animal vanished, we know another small animal, which in our homes it is there, the cockroach. It was there. If we look at the history, it actually lived more number of years. It's still living more number of years than a dinosaur. So it is not that how big you are, how fast and how adaptable you are is something which drives the change. And I believe that what we need is we need to completely, continuously adopt. But for doing that, the last story is the Alice in Wonderland. Remember in Alice in Wonderland, the Queen and the Alice runs. And at some point of time, Alice found that after running, she is in the same place. So she says that in my country, if I run, I would have reached somewhere else. So Queen says that's a very slow sort of a country. In this country, if you want to go anywhere, if you want to be where you are, you need to run. And if you want to go anywhere, you need to run twice as fast. I think the message to all of us, what a small virus has given to us is that where we were in January 2020, we need to run. If you want to run any faster, anywhere movement, and if you want to capture these opportunities in front of us, if you wanted to lead the world in the post-COVID period, we need to run twice as fast. Wish you all a great sprint. Thank you very much for a patient listening, and I will be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Saji Gopinath sir, I must admit and acknowledge that it was a very, really worthwhile presentation and it was very much insightful. Thank you so much for giving us all and taking us through the quick sneak peek of understanding disruption and how can we actually create innovation out of it. And most importantly, stressing about changing the new skill sets. It was very much insightful. So with this, I hand over the session to the faculty moderator of the day, Mr. Prakash Nimbalkar sir, to go ahead for the Q&A session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Harika and Dr. Saji. It was an excellent and a pleasure to listen to you. I'm really, a lot of learning and picking up from you. The change in business scenario that we all are exposed today. The consumer habits have changed. If you look at it pre-COVID and post-COVID, the total demarcated change that we are all seeing. An excellent explanation by you on the technology adoption by even by a common man, because there are so many of our near and dear who are not using their mobile phone for shop and doing so many things. But during the lockdown period, the choices were so minimal that we had nothing to do but to adopt to technology. The very interesting point that I noted here is that the disruption innovation, as you say, is all around us. It's there all around us. It's been there. But what has come into highlight is the food deliveries, which have really been helpful to all of us during the lockdown period. Some of the essentials were delivered. So that's a major disruption in technology, that, and the bike rentals which have come over the last couple of years, which has made the last mile connectivity for people who use other modes of transport. Like you take from my home to metro station, I need a connectivity to reach the metro station. I cannot walk, but I need a bike or a e-bike or a regular bike. And then again, where I get down from the station, and from there again to my place of work, again I need some connectivity. So these e-bikes have come in a big way. So that's a major disruption which has happened on technology part. And the last part is that uh, I remember my parents, when they used to go to shop, to regular provision store, there were no supermarkets in those days, but the shop they used to go on whatever price the shopkeeper used to provide them, anything, groceries and all, they just buy it and come. Whereas today we have come to a state, they said, let me not buy from here, let me go to that website and check if I'm getting an extra discount. So the whole thing has made our life convenient, and second thing, it started giving us so many options to choose and look at the value for the money that we are all able to get that for the money that we are looking at. So the budgets that the money budget, home budgets we are able to stretch that. That's the best part. Okay, without taking much time, I would like to share with you some of the questions which you would like to answer. One is from Miss Vandana Revankar. She asked the question: what are the effects of reduction in intermediaries on the job market?
Okay, good question. It's a two-way you can answer it. See, many of the jobs which we know today are actually intermediaries by themselves. As I gave an example of banking. Banking is an example which is a big intermediary which actually gives you a lot of jobs together. But the advantage of it is you also create a lot of entrepreneurs. So when you are moving from intermediary disintermediation to a direct between the customer and the producer, that's why you use the word publisher and subscriber. You are creating the employee becomes an employer itself. So we used to say in the fourth industrial revolution, it's a world where we don't see employers and employees, but we will see employer and super employers. Give an example. Earlier, if I have a taxi company, I own the fleet, I employ a set of drivers. So I am an intermediary. Today, what happens? The taxi driver owns taxis, customer takes it, Uber as a platform or Ola as a platform become a super employer sort of thing. So this change happens. So from a conventional way of I go to a company and work, I will become more of a nano startup or a self startup sort of thing. That change will happen. But having said that, there is also a platform economy which is coming, which creates a set of new jobs. Flipkart is a good example, which created a set of completely different set of new jobs per se. So that change is going to happen. But conventional intermediaries, there is going to be a disintermediation.
Second question is from Ms. Harika KS. Her question is, what are the latest trends and innovative strategies to take advantage of the opportunities the digital disruption is creating?
Okay, I was actually talking to a lot of small scale industries and trade in the recent past after the COVID. And all of them have realized that the conventional way of working may not really be efficient because with all these challenges. And many of them are actually ready to a digital transformation. When we speak about a digital transformation, it is multiple ways. You can use any of the digital technologies, right from a simple WhatsApp to augmented reality or things like that. But what is important here is the business is important. Many times when you transform, you kill the essence. I just give one example quickly. Think about a good, very popular shop in Bangalore where walk-ins happen. People keep on walk-in and buy and goes. Tomorrow, this walk-in is not possible. So what people do? You will create a website and put all this product there. Now, this will not create walk-ins. Walk-in, how do walk-in happens? I buy a product. I tell somebody that this product is very good. And I tell another person, that person will tell somebody it's very good. So this needs a different way of digital marketing called inbound marketing. So if you do a website, you are doing an outbound marketing. And this company's strength was never outbound marketing. The company's history, development, everything came from inbound marketing. So there are inbound marketing tools which is to be used. So it is important for us to see what is the strength and create the digital layer. And digital layer is a larger layer where this becomes important. That's why we always used to say that technology is an icing. Cake is to be good. If cake is bad, whatever icing you do, maybe once people will buy it. Next time only they won't buy it. So by covering with the technology, beautiful website, everything, but product is not good, they're not delivered in time, nobody will come back to you again. So that is something which I think, I'm sure there are a lot of commerce students and art students should understand that many times people believe that in the new world, only digital technologies will survive. No, it's the conventional things which actually succeeds. But technology gives you a very different layer on the top of it. And that's why I give the example of blue ocean strategies. Look at the places where otherwise you are not able to achieve. Now you can do that with technology. That's it.
Okay. Next question is from Miss Shweta Mukherjee. She is from International Institute of Business Studies. And her question is, she compliments you on very well explained about the trust asset element. But when it comes to provide information to public, neither the government nor the most of the companies are transparent. Now she says, about this RIT, Right to Information Act. Somebody filed to know about more about the COVID cases. But how will trust evolve in the first place when the trust is not being assured from the authorities itself?
Okay, in fact, I mean, I compliment her for that question. It's a good question. But I think my answer to that is over the period, the significance of these large entities, which we believe, like government, is actually reducing. Since she asked about this concept of COVID, today, if you wanted to know the COVID data, you don't go to ICMR site. You go to covid19india.org. It's a completely crowdsourced site. You should, I mean, I'm sure she must have looked at it. Otherwise, you should look at it. You can see the amount of detail it is available. The way people have actually given the data and people itself will correct it. That's the best part. So we have actually moved to a world where we started trusting each other. Why should we have a government giving you the data? You can actually go where on a week, on a particular hospital, how many people are there itself is there in covid19india.org, completely crowdsourced. So many areas you can see that people are actually started creating decentralized development. And decentralized development is actually one thing which COVID actually brought into the fore. States, regions where decentralized power is there, they did very well. They actually were able to come up and do this very well. So the power moving to peers and people is actually the one. And over the period, these large entities, which will also get disrupted. So you don't expect that the government entities or corporates will overnight give you everything transparent, like even if RTA and things are there. But while you have a crowd-based models, it actually pushes people to get in that.
Okay, the next question is from one Miss Payal Acharya. She said, what are the new skills that will be emerging in the post-COVID scenario?
Okay, but this is a difficult thing to answer because we still don't know how the post-COVID will be. So we can only guess. But but as I said, the Industry 4.0, which is happening over the period, speaks about some set of skills, which is in addition to your cognitive skills and other things, you also need to have a skills of social skills to interact and work with people around the world. You need to have process skills to think in a process line, and also system skills. And we know that many of the pain which we see today is actually the result of the bad doings which we had, where we never had a systems thinking concept as such. We take a decision, but we don't think what is the long-term impact of it. So those skills actually become very relevant on that. This is about the larger skills, but specifically for a successful career and things like that, two things. One, you need to have a highly adaptable and learn to learn. When your technology life cycle is very short, by the time you pass out of a college, many things you studied in the college become irrelevant. But remember, college is not only to know a particular subject, it gives you a lot of other things around it. But what is important to learn in a college is how do I learn to learn? That is an important thing. The second thing is specifically a function skill is the data management skills. Because in the past, we never had data. Today, we have enormous amount of data. A simple example is when I do an online class, I know each and every student's movement, how the person learns, everything is known. It's like Amazon, right? Amazon, when you shop, Amazon knows everything, how entire your shopping behavior, and they analyze and give you that. That is another skill which is important as a function skill.
Okay, one last question, a very interesting one from Mr. Rajiv K. Rudran. He says, he asked you a question, how do we overcome the disruption of education for the poor in the villages?
I mean, there are two parts to that question. I think, I believe that we have to disrupt the education. The second thing, I think what Mr. Rudran asked is primarily about the challenge of communication and internet or technology is basically what I meant, he meant. That is a challenge. But I think today the education has moved from a large classroom to small computers to even to a small mobile phones. Now, as a country, we are far ahead than many of others as far as mobile connectivity is concerned. But still, you have challenges. I fully agree with that. But it is possible for us to provide mobile connectivity across the country. There are projects called BharatNet, which is happening. In many states have got this own projects. The moment you do that, we will be able to actually bring the education to the students itself. There's a beautiful advertisement by IDEA, I think, some time back, where they have actually shown how every village student actually takes a mobile phone and learn. And the collective learning happens over there. What we have is suddenly we got access to huge amount of content, a content from across the world. So if you have a good teacher who can navigate you with the content, you suddenly get a repository of information processing. Technology and challenges are there, but that is easily addressable. In Kerala, we are facing that problem now, where some of the kids don't have computers and connectivity, etc. But the best part is, again, the trust factor comes into picture. People actually started donating their TVs, they start donating the laptops, etc. So that this last mile is addressed to a large extent. But I believe that with nationwide networks coming, etc., the last mile address will get addressed very fast, and that may be one of the priority for the government also.
Okay, with that, I now request our Dean, Dr. Bindu Nambiar, to say a few words to you and sparing your time to spend with our students. Over to you, Dr. Bindu.
Dr. Bindu, I think you are on mute.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Excited about the session, I guess.
Thank you.
I overlooked that. So thank you so much, Dr. Sajid Gopinath. It was really, I mean, as always, the session was outstanding and it was really good. I think you've literally opened the minds of young students who are listening, because innovation is not something very distant. It is something that they can just enter into. And it is, like you rightly put in your slide, it is the emerging culture. So I was kind of thinking how you would link these two, creative innovation, because the saying that comes to my mind is creativity is thinking up new things, while innovation is doing new things. So creative innovation is the space that is opened up suddenly post the COVID scenario. And it's possible everywhere. There is so many inputs that we have got from your session, Dr. Saji. As always, whenever we watch you, whenever we hear you, there is a new dimension that you open up for us. So I must say, on behalf of the management of RCASE, Ramaiah College, the entire Ramaiah group, the GA Foundation, my faculty team and students, student coordinator team, and all the participants today, thank you so much for being a part of this program. And we're truly honored to listen to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a very patient listening and very interactive questions. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure, sir.
Well, before we wind up, I would like to extend heartfelt gratitude to the speaker of the day, Dr. Saji Gopinath sir, for your continued patience from addressing us with a very worth presentation and also for answering all the queries of the participants. Hope our participants had a lot of key learnings and takeaways from the session. It was really, really worth having you with us today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Also, most welcome, sir. Also, I thank our Honorable Dean, Dr. Bindu ma'am, for putting us all to the exposure of such plenary speakers. Thank you very much, ma'am.
My pleasure, dear.
Most welcome, ma'am. Also, all the faculties, students, participants of Ramaiah College of Arts, Science and Commerce and from other esteemed institutions as well. Thank you for being part of today's webinar. Stay home, stay safe. I am Harika, your host, signing off.
Thank you. Thank you all.